Why does the male body continue to be a controversial subject matter in art in the United States? Join me in this video as we uncover the real mystery and why this question is important. Join me, won't you? Hi, I'm John of Figurative Arc. I am a figurative photographer, painter, experimental filmmaker, and poet. And when I go to Europe, there are representations of the male body everywhere in art, paintings, statues. I just got back from doing the Portuguese Camino, and it can be found anywhere. You don't find that in the United States in public art, and a lot of times not in galleries, although the female nude is much more prevalent. So I wanted to talk about that and why I think this topic is important. Now, I'm not going to be able to hit every single reason that contributes to this because it is complex. If you're listening to this and you'll say, oh, John, what about this? What about this? You're probably right. And so I hope to hear your comments below about maybe things I did miss and just your thoughts about this whole topic. What I think is contributing to the male body not being seen. First of all, I think it is about control. And what I mean by that is when you wear clothes, you can tell any kind of story that you want about who you are, or at least project a facade of who you are. So you can represent anything from your economic status to the type of music that you like, who you hang with, what tribe do you identify with. And I would argue that those things, through clothing, do not define you as a person. They don't say anything about your character at all. And yet, you can create this narrative versus the narrative being created by your values and how you live them out. And I also think that comes along with control, the whole issue of dominance, of using power to get what you want. In American society, it's a very consumer-driven society versus in other places of the world, it really doesn't matter what you do for a living. And usually people don't, that's not the first question they ask you in other parts of the world. It usually is here in the United States. In my work, for example, in my photography, I try to show men not as a dominant figure in the photograph, but instead the man's body is forming a relationship with the environment and his community around him. So he has integrated himself into the environment. When you put all this together, you're talking about vulnerability. When we think of the knight, we have the armor. That kind of denotes vulnerability, right? Because you put on armor, just like we were talking about earlier about clothes. But what if you take a knight's armor away? Who are they? So they're vulnerable. And you see the first vulnerability when that's taken away. So do we like seeing men vulnerable? I think in American society, we don't, for some of the reasons, again, that I went over earlier. So why is this all important? It's like, so what? Well, I think men are vulnerable right now, particularly young men, in many different ways. We need ways of affirming the beauty of men. I know in my work, it's always a challenge of finding the representation that you can of that. A lot of times it's limited by who you know and who you can form that trusting relationship to do this kind of photography. When it comes to nude photography, it's not something you can do with just anyone. What do you think about all this? Do you think this is an important issue, or maybe you don't? Or maybe, again, I've missed a whole bunch of points. Leave comments below. I'd really be interested in hearing what you have to say. Any thoughtful, sincere efforts to engage are welcome. Consider subscribing if you find this content valuable. I hope to see you again here sometime soon. Take care, and until next time, toodaloo.